but I am doing this now. And I want somewhere around, I want you to find this sheet that says 411, and down at the bottom it says BOE. Your homework assignment is to look at the two websites that you need to know about. One is the 411 Vote 411, which is from the League of Women Voters, and the list that I have given everybody today, which is the list that says candidates and issue forums, is copied off of that Vote 411 site. See Katie? Everybody see Katie there with her paper up in the air?
I've been giving one.
If you have not gotten a copy of the candidate and issue forums, you need that. Your homework assignment is to go to the two websites, Vote 411 and the Board of Elections, hamilton.county.org. I want to point out two important issue forms. One of them is tonight. It says mayoral business debate. And that's going to be at the, wait a second, that's cost. The other one that's tonight is the NAACP Board of Education, Cincinnati Public Schools. And I didn't know where the Cincinnati Hamilton County Community Action Agency was, so I have put out, make sure that the address is there in case you want to go to them.
It's where they all slipped in conference, across from Woodward High School.
It's what? It says 821 Langdon Farm.
Yeah, it's right across from Woodward High School.
Across from Woodward High School. All right. So that's a really important meeting for the Board of Education. Could you pass those out for me? Sure. Ann is coming around with the 411 papers that has tonight's event there at Langdon Farms, and that. Okay, so we're up to introductions and announcements. And we will start with, there we go.
Sure.
Bob Sturdivant.
Hi, Big Val. All right, I'd like to welcome everyone here. It's nice to see everyone. I'm here for the marijuana meeting.
Oh, no, you missed it.
Oh, that was last week, sorry. Okay. Robert Sturdivant, Cincinnati Educational Justice Coalition. We are about to publish our report card on the Board of Education candidates. Look for that press conference on Thursday. Very exciting time for us. Well, love to see everybody here. On the 20th, we do have an action at the University of Cincinnati. We'll be in protest of the Trump the Boss education budget. There'll be an action at the main campus at 12 o'clock, from 12 to 2. I'd like to see everybody.
Where?
At University of Cincinnati.
Where?
Big place.
Oh, Big Picket. Let's try
Pick a
that.
spot.
Pick a spot. Go to the bridge. I went there. Okay, all right, so it'll be there. I'd like to see everyone there. It'll be from 12 to 2 on the 20th. It coincides with the national action against the Department of Education proposed cuts by the boss and Trump.
There you go. And we have, here we go with Barb.
Okay, I have another announcement for September 20th.
Louder.
Another announcement for September 20th.
Where you go, Barbie?
Okay, it's given by Tina Bain. It's a reception in support of Connie Pellick for governor. It's Wednesday, September 20th from 5:30 to 7
I don't live in the city.
at 424 Appaloosa Court, 45231.
See Barb. Announcements.
The Democratic gubernatorial debates are tonight, and evidently there's going to be a viewing held at
Muse Cafe.
Okay, and I don't know what time. Do you know?
6, starting at 6.
Starting at 6. You can also do the streaming on your computer, but it'll be held at Muse Cafe at 6. Democratic gubernatorial debates.
I have two announcements. Tomorrow, the state is going to murder another inmate, and we have prayer vigils tonight Every night before the executions, we have prayer vigil at Mount Auburn Presbyterian Church. So I hope you can attend at 7 o'clock. Mount Auburn Presbyterian the night before executions. We have 27 scheduled executions. Ouch. I call this group therapy, and I need group therapy today. Did any of you get this voter's guide in your mail about issue 2? Oh my God. I mean, it's just incredible how they build a case against issue 2, the pharmaceuticals people. And if anybody can help me with some arguments against this, I'd love to have them, because it's pretty, I mean, you read this, they have a list of all these groups who are against it, etc. It's really incredible.
Thank you. Monica.
Hi, Monica Leroy. I just want to let you know that the College Hill Red Pizza Group has finally met its end, but we had a good party anyway. Mary Mulford, the owner, it was her 24th anniversary last night, so we celebrated with her. Our speaker was Elena Jokum with Equality Ohio. If you ever get a chance, she's wonderful. She's talking about working with Kasich Group to put in place a law, anti-discrimination, LGBTQ. So if there's ever a need for a place to meet, talk to Mary Mulford at Red Rose Pizzeria. Secondly, I was asked to share this with you. I'm sure we've all seen it, but here it goes. It bears repeating. I do not like your lying ways. I do not like your hate for gays. I do not like your grabbing rum. I do not like you, Mr. Trump.
Yay! Give it to Noha. She got here in time to make her announcement. I'm so proud of Noha. She's from Warren County, guys, a Democrat from Warren County.
Little Warren County. I'm Noha Yaga, and I'm actually running for Mason School Board. And would just love to have your help and support here.
She's our group's representative for the future.
Thank you, Alberta.
Yeah, she's wonderful. So if you're in Warren, we actually had a Warren County table here at one point.
Yep.
Oh, you're here. Wonderful.
I am working on Noha's campaign. I have campaign cards. If you are from Mason, or if you know people from Mason, I'll be happy to give you as many cards as I can spare, so we can get the word out, because Noha is running for the first time. She's going to contribute so much to the Mason School Board, including diversity, which they severely lack at the current time. So if any of you will take any cards, we would be very happy for you to have them. So if you just raise your hand, I'll come around and distribute for anyone that would like any.
Any other? Okay, Elizabeth.
No, I just want a card.
Who wants a card?
Hi, I'm Dr. Moffitt, Doreen Moffitt, running for Cincinnati Public School Board. Please take some information, give me your insight. I'd love to hear you. I'm supported by the National Association of Social Workers and our revolution.
So glad you came. Thank you. Dr. Laura?
Hi, I'm Dr. Laura Weaver, the candidate for Congressional District 1, U.S. House of Representatives, and I'm looking forward to a very vigorous campaign this fall. We are going to be having the primary on May 8th. There will be a couple of opponents opposing me, but that's okay. I will deal with them. And then it will be on to the general election. Thank you very much.
Other announcements?
Yeah.
Bernie?
I'm not Bernie, I'm for Bernie.
For Bernie.
Just want to have a big tent with Bernie.
Right close to your mouth. We can't hear you when you have to hold
We
it right.
just want to
There you
have a
go.
big tent, everybody together, so I wear my Bernie hat. I just want to mention, this doesn't seem all that important compared to what we've been hearing, but you might want to know that little restaurant on Vine Street called Venice on Vine, they're having a big fundraising brunch next Sunday, 9:30 to 1:30. I have the address and other information with me here if anybody would like to get it from me.
What's the fundraiser for?
For Venice on Vine. Yeah.
They help inmates.
Next Sunday, the 17th.
Help inmates get out of prison.
When they get out of.
They help.
Get them jobs.
Workers learn the food business. It started by some nuns. You probably know about it.
Mary Ted.
I have a couple of announcements if we don't have any more from out there. Do we have any more from out there?
Well, we have Bob Barr in the room.
Bob Barr. Okay, let's get the microphone to him.
Oh, thanks.
We like people to get the introduce here. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rabbi Robert Barr, and as Dr. Laura Weaver said, that she may have some opponents in the primary, and I am likely to be one of those opponents. So we're sitting apart from each other. It's okay, but we know each other, and it's important. It's important to have a vigorous conversation about what we are going to be and how we're going to go forward. And I'm delighted to be here and to meet you all.
Glad to have you.
Wait a minute, and you're running to be what?
Oh,
Congratulations.
wow, thank you.
Number
That's
two.
why I need help. I'm a new candidate. So I'll be running for Ohio 1 against Steve Shabbat, but we'll have a primary on May 8th, and that's going to be the goal. I will, in fact, be only the third rabbi in the history of the United States of America to be running. And if I were to win, I would actually be the first rabbi to serve in the House of Representatives, actually the highest level of government. So it's also an historic decision, so that's why it's weighed heavily on my mind.
Glad to have you here, Rabbi. Thank you. Other announcements?
Thank you, Bill.
We have some naturalization ceremonies coming up, and if you want to be part of that, please see me. We have one coming up this Thursday, I believe it is. It's an odd time. Be in touch with me. It's a really wonderful thing to go, and one of the great things is that we go as part of the League of Women Voters, and we get people registered to vote. It's very nice. And it's just nice to do something positive in these times. And I have to tell you, I was there on Friday, this past Friday, at a naturalization ceremony. And usually they have 70 people being naturalized. And the lowest number I've ever gotten to register to vote was 63. But this time there were 72, and I only got 55 people registered to vote. And I was stunned. But then I looked back at who was there, and it's all the parents of these immigrants. These ancient folks, the grandmothers and grandparents and older elderly cousins and stuff who don't actually speak the language yet and whatever. They're so afraid of these relatives being deported that they're getting them registered, they're getting them naturalized so that there's no threat to having them exported. It was sad, and it was interesting. There was one woman who could not sit up, and I tried to get her another chair so she could rest on the chair, and the court officer would not help me get a chair, and he said, no, she can't have this chair, and no, she can't lay down on that bench, and no, she can't. And finally somebody gave up a chair from a child, and then the court person said, well, that child cannot run around. I'm thinking, this poor lady just was so sick, but she wanted to be there and wanted to get registered as a citizen and then registered to vote, I hope. But she was one of the people that we didn't get registered to vote because she couldn't. So see me about naturalization ceremonies. I do want to give you some important dates. And at the back counter, we do have forms to get people registered to vote, or if you have anybody in your neighborhood who is new to the neighborhood and they need to have a change of address form, get them registered to vote. The last time to get people changed or registered in the first place is coming up soon. That's October 10th. Early voting is starting on October 11th. It's coming up fast. the time is here, folks. If you know people who need to be registered to vote, take a few of our registers. We've got a big pile of registrations to get people registered to vote. Want you to do, and remember your homework assignment. The homework assignment is to go to two websites, Vote 411, that's on this paper, or go to the Board of Elections website. Please see what's offered there.
What is it?
Vote 411 is information, see this sheet that has all of the candidates and forms? That's from the 411 website. Vote 411, the League of Women Voters are amazing in terms of the information they have out on candidates and issues, and one of the things we want to do in this group is to be informed, and one of the ways to be informed is to go to these websites. So learn how to do that. It's very important. So all of this is on that website. And now we come to the important part. It's the part of the party, and we're going to start the party with a happy birthday to Aftab Pureval, who just turned 35. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Aftab. Happy birthday to you. And with that, I'm going to say, come on up. Aftab, Aftab. Are you ready for this, folks?
Yes,
Alberta, thank you. I've never been sang to before I went on and spoke, so thank you, GCD. I really appreciate it. As Alberta mentioned, my name is Aftab Pureval, and I was recently elected the Hamilton County Clerk of Courts, thanks to a lot of people in this room. And frankly, 2 years ago, I was just a nobody, right? Never run for office before, didn't really know what I was doing. And so I want to start by giving a round of applause to Dr. Moffitt, to Dr. Weaver, to Noha, to Rabbi Barr, because if we are really going to be a true resistance effort and movement, if we're going to be leaders on these progressive values that we all believe in, we have to run for office, and more importantly, we have to win. So please give these folks a round of applause.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I've never been to this group. This is really inspiring to see the diversity in this room. Young, more experienced people from all over the county. But just so I have a sense of who I'm talking to, can you raise your hand if you've heard me speak before? Okay, so a vast majority of you. All right, so I won't do my intro, but just quickly, for those of you who haven't seen me speak before, I am half Tibetan and half Indian. My mother's from Tibet. She was a refugee. She was forced to flee her home country, grew up in India, where she met my dad, who's Indian. They got married, and they immigrated in 1980 to, of all places, to Beaver Creek, Ohio. I was born 2 years later, 1982, September 9th, 1982, which was just last week, and went to public schools. After going through a pretty standard childhood in Beaver Creek in the suburb of Dayton, I made it to Ohio State, where I was elected student body president. After that, I moved down to UC to attend the UC College of Law. I worked at a large law firm in Washington, D.C. for several years, but I got homesick. I moved back to Cincinnati, where I served as a federal prosecutor. And then most recently, I was the global attorney for Oil of Olay at Procter & Gamble, which made me a beauty attorney, which is ridiculous. I really loved that job. It was a really wonderful company to work for. It was just an incredible job, really challenging, intellectually stimulating. But I decided that public service is what I wanted to do. If I'm honest, public service is always what I've wanted to do. And so I decided to run for office. I didn't run for Congress. I didn't run for even city council. I decided to run for the Hamilton County Clerk of Courts, right? The least sexiest position in the world. And right off the bat, I had several problems. I was running for an office that nobody cares about. I was running against an opponent that people said couldn't be beaten. I was running in conservative Hamilton County, where Democrats haven't fared that well. And if it's not clear to all of you, I'm a brown guy named Aftab, right? So the deck was certainly stacked against me. So when I would tell people early on that I wanted to run for this position, they would genuinely ask, "Are you crazy? You're going to run for this position, no shot at winning for a position that no one cares about. And in order to do that, you have to leave Procter & Gamble. Are you insane?" And that was just my mom, right? So no one thought we had a chance. Nobody thought we had a chance. We were just this crazy campaign that few people were paying attention to. But we put our heads down, we worked as hard as we possibly could, and at the end of the day, we won. And we won by more than 5 points, and by winning, we became the first Democrat in over 100 years to hold this seat. So don't tell me Democrats can't win. So today, I really want to focus on answering really 2 questions. How did we win, number 1, because I think it's relevant to the 17 election and also to the big elections coming up in 18. And number 2, when we won, after we won, what have we been up to for the past 8 months or so? So number 1, I've got really 3 lessons I want to talk to you about as far as how we actually won the election. And the first issue is about messaging. We tried to have a message that connected with people in personal ways, that tried to connect with and tried to increase the stakes of our office. And so we talked a lot about our court system and how our courts are the one place where it shouldn't matter what you look like, where you're from, or how much money you have. It should be the one place where the playing field is absolutely equal. And while that's our goal, we know that's not true. It's definitely not true at the federal level, and it's certainly not true at the local level. And our shared experiences, whether you're in Avondale or in Green Township, we've all experienced it personally, or we know someone who's experienced injustice, where when you're showing up in front of a judge, or when you're applying for a job in the courthouse, it should not matter what your last name is, who you're related to, or what your political party is. But all too often in Hamilton County, that's the only thing that mattered. And so we ran on trying to clean up the corruption, the nepotism, the political patronage. We ran to try and restore our faith in our justice system and in our courts. And shockingly, that kind of kitchen table message really resonated with people. Because at the end of the day, people want folks who are qualified to be in office. They don't want folks who think it's their birthright that they should be in elected office just because they're related to the right person. They want qualifications, they want to know that someone is in it for the right reasons, and they want you to just do your job and do it well. That's what I learned. Number 2, we campaigned everywhere, and we did not sacrifice or give up on any single issue in any single neighborhood. So for those political junkies in the room, you know the campaign strategy for running countywide. If you're a Democrat, you focus on the city and some of the close eastern suburbs. You forget about the far east side, Anderson Township. You forget about the entire west side, because conventional wisdom is you're not going to get any votes there. And if you're a Republican, it's just the opposite. You focus on the west side, you focus on the far east side, and you largely ignore the city. Well, we flipped that on its head. We decided that we were going to go everywhere in Hamilton County and talk about these issues and not be scared to go up to any single person or any single group, no matter where it was in Hamilton County. Because while we may not win Green Township or Colerain Township or Harrison, margins matter. It's much better to lose Green Township 60-40 or even 70-30 than it is to lose it 90-10. And if you ignore the entire half of the county, you're going to lose it 90-10. And you know what? You're going to deserve to lose it 90-10 because you didn't do the work. You didn't have the courage of your convictions to go to those voters and give them a shot to vote for you. So we would go everywhere. If there was a homecoming parade in Harrison, I would show up. No one would know how to pronounce my name, but I would show up. If there was If there was a football game in Anderson Township or a Catholic festival, I would show up, I would shake every single person's hand, I would look them in the eyes, and I would try and find some kind of connection or common ground with them. And believe it or not, more often than not, I was able to do it, even in some of the most conservative areas where people had never seen a guy named Aftab, never met a Tibetan, right? But we were able to do it because the second lesson that I learned is politics isn't necessarily about meeting someone and listing off your entire policy agenda. I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. Politics is about engendering trust and having human connections with other people. And if you can do that, if you can do that effectively, if you can do that courageously, I think you can win a lot of votes from people who may not necessarily agree with you on all the issues. And the third thing we did was we turned a perceived weakness into a strength. So I had a lot of challenges, but my first and foremost challenge was my name, right? Aftab. If you see Aftab on a yard sign, it doesn't necessarily click that that's a human being, right? You're like thinking, that might be a prescription, maybe that's a P&G product. So like truly, like you would see Aftab on a yard sign, and it was a problem. So we started by putting vote Aftab to try and contextualize it as a candidate, but it was a real problem. And so early on in the campaign, people said, well, you should change your name to Adam, maybe to Al, to make it easier on voters. But if we're going to be a party of diversity, if that's truly what we are about, if that's our rhetoric, then our actions have to meet that. So I was running as my own man. I was running on who I was as a person and what my values were, and changing my name in order to maybe win a few more votes just wasn't part of my value system or my calculus. So instead of running away from it, instead of changing my name, we made it the centerpiece of our campaign. And some of you may have seen how we did that. We turned my name into something that was memorable, that was accessible, and to a certain degree that was funny. And it was me in 2 different 30-second TV spots next to a big yellow duck puppet. And every time I would say my name, the duck puppet would say Aftab in the Aflac voice, right? That's right, Alberta. Alberta's gonna be in my next commercial. So it certainly wasn't dignified, but it worked. And it worked because, again, it was about creating a human connection with people to make folks see me not as a scary foreigner that they had nothing in common with, but as who I truly am, and that is a kid that grew up in a suburb of Dayton. I'm as Ohio as it gets. I've been educated in Ohio, I've worked in Ohio. I am no different than people on the west side or the east side or in the city. And that's how we did it, right? We used our diversity as a strength. And I've said it many times, but if we really are the party of diversity, that has to mean more than just the words. Because the truth of the matter is, if you're brown or if you're black, if you're a brown dude with a funny name or a black woman with a unique name, it's harder. You have to work harder. From the local level all the way to the national level. We saw the incredible curve that President Obama was graded on, right? He wears a tan jacket to a press conference and everyone loses their damn mind. Compare that to our current person occupying the White House. It's obviously a different grading scale that they're being graded on. And that's no different than your local candidates. It's just a lot harder. You have to work a lot harder, you have to be more creative, and frankly, you have to raise more money. Because if I wasn't able to raise the money in order to get on television, in order to get my name out there and have people comfortable with my name and able to pronounce it, then I don't win. I want to get money out of politics as much as any of you do, but if these are the rules of the game, then we have to fundraise intelligently, we have to fundraise intentionally, and we have to support candidates that are diverse in order to help them and enable them to win. But winning is just the first step. Once we get into office, we've got to show up. I've been traveling the state on behalf of Senator Brown, doing some surrogacy work on his Senate campaign. I was just in the eastern part of the state, in the southeastern part of the state. And what I learned here in Hamilton County was just reinforced by my travels across the state. It's that what people care about in Green Township is the exact same issues about what people care about in the city. They want good schools for their kids, they want accessible, affordable health care, and they just want a good paying job that provides some benefits. What we care about here in Cincinnati is the exact same thing that they care about in Eastern Ohio and Southeastern Ohio. But here's where we have fallen down as a party. And this is what I'm hearing all across the state. It's that when Democrats get into office, or just politicians in general, we don't show up. We don't put points on the board. It's really easy to walk across the county, to go into places just like this, to go into these rooms and say, I'm going to solve all your problems. It's really easy to make incredible promises, to use flowery rhetoric to inspire people. But then when you win and you're in the job and the seat is yours, then what are you going to do? Who are you going to stand up for? What issues are you going to advocate? What's going to keep you up at night? I'm incredibly proud that in the 8 months that we've been in office, we have put points up on the board. We have had the courage of our convictions and the backbone to stand up to people, to piss some people off, but to follow through on the promises that we made. My entire campaign was about changing the culture of the courthouse, ending nepotism and patronage, and on day one, we did that. After I won, people were shocked, right? They were like, how did this kid win? This is all luck. The dog finally caught the car. In this metaphor, I'm the dog. So no one thought, everyone thought I was in over my head. No one thought I had any idea what I was doing. And on day one, I fired a bunch of people. So I caught their attention on day one. And the people that we fired, right? It's not something that I enjoy doing. I think in the first 3 months, we fired or people walked away about 25 people. That's a lot of people out of an office of about 219. But I made a promise that I would change the culture, and you only change culture by changing the leadership. And so a lot of the people in the office were making six-figure salaries at the very top, and they weren't doing a whole lot, frankly. It was a waste of taxpayer dollars. We were overstaffed. And so not only did we cut those people, but we also reduced the size of the office. I started with 219 full-time staff. We're currently at 204. Same level of service, probably better service, but a lot fewer employees. And so what does that translate into? That translates into over $700,000 saved of taxpayer dollars, right? So that's really good, because it's incredibly important, particularly for Democrats, to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. But what it also enabled us to do was fund some of our priorities. Number one, we launched a new website, the first one in 20 years. For some of you math buffs, that's literally the invention of the internet. So we threw up a website and then we didn't touch it for 20 years. So we launched a new website with new services, new online services. The website's now mobile friendly. The second thing we did was we brought everyone up to a living wage of at least $30,000. Thank you, yeah. 22 people in my office were not making a livable wage. 72. 72, excuse me. We started people at $22,000. That's poverty wages. These are public servants working in our community, working for the public, and they were living in poverty. It was unconscionable, and it changed. And then the third thing we did was we became the first countywide executive in the state to offer comprehensive paid family leave. Not just maternity leave, but also paternity leave. And also if you have a sick loved one, you now get 2 weeks of paid time off. So you don't have to choose between sitting by a bedside of a loved one or coming into work and losing your job. those are transformative changes that we did here at the clerk's office. We didn't even have a maternity leave policy when we first got there. And now, after just 8 months, we are one of the most progressive offices in the state. So the Republicans had it for 100 years. We have had it for 8 months. And I'll put my record up against theirs any day. And that's what we need to do as progressives and as Democrats. And that's really what my message to you all today is. It's one thing to win an election, and that's wonderful, and we've got to do that. We've got to run, we've got to win if we want to create change. But then when we are in office, we have to show up. We have to have a backbone. I'm just tired of supporting candidates that don't stand for anything, that are afraid of upsetting people, that are afraid of pissing people off. And it really hit home for me during the Montana special election. You remember that guy body slammed a reporter? Insane. And when the press asked his Democratic opponent what he thought about that, he said no comment. I'm sick and tired of no comment. This is not the time for no comment. It's not the time for no action. If we work hard and get people elected, we have to hold them accountable. We have to demand that they take action. We have to demand that they stand up for our progressive values. It's not enough just to win elections anymore, guys. We've got to start putting points up on the board. Because the guy in the Oval Office is an existential threat to our democracy.
Yeah.
That is not hyperbole. He's an existential threat to the citizens of Ohio. What do you stand for, and who do you stand for? The Democrats, we have to, and progressives, we have to stand for the middle class. We have to stand for people like Catherine McGuire. I just met Catherine just a few weeks ago. She's a 61-year-old woman living here in Cincinnati. She was a small business owner. She lost her small business. She lost her insurance, but she was covered because of the Medicaid expansion. And it's a good thing because she was recently diagnosed with breast cancer. President Trump and the Republicans want to kick her off of health care. And not just her, but millions of Americans across the country. And if they succeed, if it's true that they want to bring it back, people will die. Those are the stakes. Our activism is more important now than it ever has been. That's why I'm so inspired to see groups like this popping up at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level, because we have to be organized. The stakes of this upcoming election in 17 and 18 are sky high. They're as high as you can possibly count. If we don't protect Sherrod Brown, if we don't win just some of these statewide elections, not all of them, but just some of them, then we're Indiana, we're Kansas, and it's going to be Josh Mandel's from here on out. Oh. That's terrifying, right? That is really terrifying. But I'm optimistic, I really am. Because what we're doing in the clerk's office and what other Democrats are doing across the country is giving people a vision of what government can be. It doesn't have to be dysfunctional. It doesn't have to be gridlocked. It can reflect our greatest hopes and desires. It can achieve progressive goals and make people's lives better. The 72 families that were making under a livable wage, their lives are transformed forever because of that progressive value. After we announced that wage increase, people were literally weeping in the clerk's office. They were weeping. That's what politics should be. It can be. And with your help, it will be again. Thank you, guys. All right, we got some time for questions. Clerk's office questions, local politics, state, national. We talked earlier. I don't have a strong opinion yet on issue 2. I'm still doing research. Some of my friends are for it, some of my friends are against it. I see Leo's coming on October 3rd to talk to you about it. I'm going to educate myself about it more. I just haven't had time to do that. So I don't have a strong opinion about it. You can still ask me about it, but I'll probably punt.
Testing. Thank you. How did the Democrats lose the presidential election and how did Trump win? How did that happen? This is America, right?
Yeah, thanks, Bennett. All right, we'll start with an easy one. Yeah, so, you know, I really think it comes down to two issues, and one is strategy and two is messaging. So from a strategy perspective, I think we spent way too much time focusing on areas where there were a lot of Democratic votes, and instead of focusing on persuading independents or maybe even persuading some Republicans, the strategy on a national level was purely turnout. I saw it here in Hamilton County, I saw it across the state. Instead of trying to organize places like Eastern Ohio or Southeastern Ohio or Northwestern Ohio, we focused on Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, on registering as many voters as we could and then turning them out. And as a result, when I was mentioning earlier about our countywide strategy, we lost Guernsey County 90-10, whereas Obama only lost it 70-30. And while those aren't huge population areas, when you lose all of those counties 90-10, that's how Trump gets an 8-point win in the state of Ohio. I can't speak to the rest of the country because I didn't have personal knowledge of that, but I got a sense that that problem in Ohio was replicated across the state. And the second thing we lost our way on was our messaging. We allowed Trump and the Republicans to be faux populists, to take our messaging about working families, about middle class, about jobs. He basically hijacked our economic message and gave it in a way that, even though he's a billionaire who doesn't care about people, he gave it in a way that was more compelling than we did. So, you know, but again, if I had all the answers, I wouldn't be the Clerk of Courts, I'd be something else. But that's just my opinion on the national race.
Dr. Everhart.
Yes, I just want to thank you so much for coming to inspire us. We all need inspiration on a regular basis because we all need to be advocates for progressivism, for love, for compassion. We need that, and you fuel it, and I appreciate that very much. I'm out there in the district, the 2nd district, every day, 1 to 3 events per day, talking to people.
You're running for office, right?
Yes, I'm running for the 2nd congressional district. They know this well.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
These are my friends.
This is my first time.
These are my friends here, so they know that well. And I'm asking everybody here to take the inspiration of what Aftab brings to us today, and please get out there with me. You know, I'm sitting in the fire department in Manchester talking to someone who's pouring his heart out to me. With a lot of, you know, racism and xenophobia mixed in, yes, but he's pouring his heart out to me. He's my future constituent, and I need everybody's help, and Aftab needs everybody's help, and Sherrod needs everybody's help out there leaning in to the populace. Let them know who you are and what you stand for, and let them see the face of Democrats right in their space. Let them know who you are, because you are you're an evil force at length, but you are their friend, their neighbor, close up.
Question.
Thank you, Janet. Dr. Everhart.
Patricia.
Hi, thank you for being here. I really appreciate all the changes that you've already done, the website, the wage increases. I was just wondering, do you have any other big projects or goals that you have for the rest of your?
Yeah, so there's more work to do. The courts are more messed up than you can imagine. So I will be busy for my 4-year term. Our next big announcement, though, and there's a lot more in the pipeline, but our next big announcement is about access to justice. So I talked a lot on the campaign trail about the obstacles for getting a fair shake in our justice system. I often talk about, so I was a federal prosecutor, and I often talk about the fact that when I was a federal prosecutor, I had the full resources of the Department of Justice, I had the FBI, the Secret Service, all these federal agencies working on my behalf to investigate these crimes. And if you're a criminal defendant, let's assume that you're living in poverty, you have an overworked and underpaid federal public defender. So if I'm the worst prosecutor in the world, right, and you are the most innocent person in the world, because of the disparity in resources, you're going to feel compelled to take a plea deal and to avoid a trial and significant jail time. And so there's something screwed up with that calculus. We focus so much of our attention on justice reform with the police and the judges and the prosecutors, and there's certainly a need for that. But what I focus on at the clerk's office is just that first step, right? Just getting into the courthouse, just getting into a lawyer's office. Because the clerk's office, while it certainly is a bureaucratic job, it really is the front door between the community and the court system. And when that front door is antiquated, when it's inefficient, when it's inaccessible, it undermines the rest of our court system. And so the biggest obstacle for folks who are unsophisticated litigants is our court system is so big, it's so confusing, it's so bureaucratic, it can be hard to just navigate it, to even get some mundane work done. So what we're announcing the opening of later this month, in exactly actually 2 weeks, is a help center that is physically located in the first floor of the courthouse. So if you have a landlord-tenant issue, if you have a small claims issue, you can go into this help center. It'll be staffed. It's a partnership between my office and the UC College of Law. It'll be staffed by law students and one full-time lawyer. So you can come in and get limited representation. If you have straightforward questions, they'll answer it. They'll give you strategies and tips to better represent yourself. So it's a small part of creating greater access to justice.
Great.
What else we got?
Yeah, my name is Ken Fleming. I'm with Amicus Children's Learning Center, and this is David Booker.
Hey guys.
Amicus Children's Learning Center. I had a question about simplicity. Human beings seem to react to simplicity. And I look at the Republican Party and conservatives, and the message with them is always so simple because they only seem to care about 3 or 4 issues. And it seems to me that if you're a progressive or you're a liberal, your mind tends to be a little bit, you seem to be more of a deeper thinker, maybe you read more books. So what I'm asking is, how do we use a simple message to win? Because it's very easy to use fear. Fear is a very motivating thing. The game doesn't even compare to fear. When you have 8 years of the Republican Party scaring the hell out of everybody, saying that this is the worst president that has ever existed in human history, okay? And then they come into power and they have no idea how to govern, but his approval rating with his own people is still very high. So how do we, and I'm not asking you to be a shrink here, but how do we have a simple message to come back and take back the White House?
Yeah. Well, so I want to push back on the picture you're painting just a little bit. I do think it's accurate. And while his support among Republicans is still relatively high, I think it's important to remember that he's got like a 36% approval rating, right? So the vast majority, not just Democrats, but a vast majority of Americans significantly disapprove with the job he's doing. Thank God, right? Because if not, that would be crazy world. The second thing to keep in mind, and I don't say this to make any excuses, but I do think it's important to remember that he lost the popular vote, right? He's certainly president, the Electoral College is what it is, but we are standing on more firm ground than I think we realize. Now there's messaging issues which you brought up, there's strategies issues which I've talked about, but I do think we're well poised for a 2018 wave. We have to create that wave, we have to sustain that wave, we have to ensure that that wave crests, but I think the conditions are right for that. To answer your question more directly though, on the messaging front. For statewide elections, we have been losing for the past decade, right? We lose governor's races, secretary of state, attorney general. Governor Strickland just lost to Rob Portman. We have been getting, excuse my language, our ass kicked for 10 years or more. The only Democrat who wins statewide is Sherrod Brown. That's it. So I always look to Sherrod Brown, right, as my Rosetta Stone. And Sherrod Brown, his entire career, he has been speaking about issues that affect the middle class. And most importantly, he's been speaking to the people desperately trying to get into the middle class. And so I agree with your fundamental point that we have to make it simple. And what I always come back to when I'm talking on behalf of Sherrod Brown, or when I'm giving other Democrats running at a congressional or a statewide race, the advice I give them is jobs, healthcare, and change. So jobs and healthcare are pretty straightforward. The Democrats, we have a genuine, long-standing connection with labor and with the importance of that. But change, I think, is something that we need to embrace more as a party. President Obama used change, the message of change incredibly well. Even, unfortunately, Donald Trump used the message of change incredibly well. I used a message of change, 100 years of Republicans, Winklers everywhere, right? Oftentimes in my speech, I would say, the only one good thing about being named Aftab is, you know, I'm not related to anybody, right? So I think we have to embrace that message of change because there's something uniquely American. It's almost in our DNA to believe that everything can be better, that the grass is always greener, that we can improve on things and help everyone. And I think we have to embrace that more with our economic message.
Elizabeth. Your response to the first question about how did Trump win, one thing you didn't mention was the Electoral College, which you just mentioned about, so do you know of anything that's being done with the Electoral College?
I don't. I have not heard of any attempt at the grassroots or the national stage to change that. I think that would require a constitutional convention, and I don't know what the details are on that, but I know that the barrier to changing that would be quite high. But I think it warrants a conversation because this is now twice in the modern era where someone who was popularly elected did not end up being president, and I think that's a problem. And a system that was set up in order to favor landowners and more educated voters, I don't think is as relevant in the 21st century. But the issue that I do know, speaking of a rigged system, that there's a lot of movement on is gerrymandering. So there's a statewide ballot initiative collecting signatures. The state party has been really active in this. So have the various progressive indivisible groups. I don't have any petitions. So has this group apparently. So I would encourage everyone, it sounds like you're already on it, to sign those petitions and circulate them.
Sabroto.
Aftab, another strange name. So, you mentioned the 4-5 items that are in the message, that should be in the message at this point of the Democratic side. What will it take to put environment on it? Because I think that is probably in the long range more important than anything else for us as a species.
Yeah, I don't mean to discount other issues that are incredibly. I'm incredibly passionate about justice reform. I'm incredibly passionate about equality, about social justice issues. But when it comes to connecting with the parts of the state and the parts of the country that we have failed to connect with, I really do think we have the tip of the spear, of the progressive spear, I think really does have to be jobs, healthcare, and change. Obviously the environment, particularly given what's going on in the south and southwestern part of our country and the world, is more relevant now than it ever has been. I am optimistic though, even though Donald Trump took us out of the Paris Accord, other local electeds across the country have stepped up, mayors, commissioners, governors, and so based on that, I think we're still in a good place to hit our commitments for the Paris Accord. But your point is right. I mean, the environment has to be part of the national conversation. But I guess what I'm saying, to answer your correct question directly, is I don't think we need to abdicate those issues, but when we think about how we're messaging and how we're packaging our message, I do think we have to lead with jobs and healthcare.
2 more questions. Dr. Laura.
I'll comment on the Paris Accords because that doesn't take effect until 2021, and we are currently still in compliance with it. In 2020, I'm very hopeful that we will have a Democratic Party president.
Me too.
All right. I wanted to comment on your statement about Donald Trump not getting the popular vote. Hillary Clinton did not get the popular vote either. The popular vote went to the registered electorate who chose to stay home. So the answer to the political malaise that we are now feeling is that we have to get out the vote. We have to give them a message that they can hear and understand and appreciate and get them to vote.
Yeah, here.
Rob.
Aftab, I'd like to start by saying, the question is closer to home for you. I can't imagine a barn that was more in need of a cleanup than the Clerk of Courts office after being dominated for so long by Republicans. It probably holds true for most of the offices in Hamilton County. My question is concerning the cleanup. I guess I'm just curious, how much of it, if you can give an approximate idea, how much of it would you say was involved in efficiency of the office, class warfare, even partisan politics? Can you give us some indication?
For how it was or how it occurred?
I mean, when you decided you had to clean up on day one, which you had to do,
yeah.
I'm curious, was any of it based on, sorry, I could have spoken up.
I got it. So none of it was based on political party. I don't know what any of my employees' political party is. It was based entirely on what the needs of the office was, what an efficient organization looks like, and the steps necessary in order to end patronage and using the office as a political machine and ending nepotism. And so the first 3 people I fired on day one were making some of the highest salaries in the office. I don't know what their political party was. I imagine, given the fact that there were stories in the office about lists being circulated where every employee had to list at least 4 addresses where a Republican yard sign could go. Stories where, the office party during election years for campaign fundraisers for either the incumbent or for other judges in the courthouse. Stories where people who didn't even work at the clerk's office would come into the office, tell someone that they were officially on break as of that moment, and start talking about what the needs of the campaign were and what they needed to do. Stories about how folks were promoted or given salaries based on how many parades they walked in, or how much activism they did on behalf of some judge or some incumbent. So that's what we were trying to end. And all of the firings, all of the changes, all of the HR decisions since day one have been based on those values and on those priorities.
Next question, Dr. Bozian.
Thank you for your inspirational piece. Where do you stand pros and cons on issue 2?
Yeah. So, Doctor, I appreciate the question. I am still learning myself about issue 2. I've seen all the TV ads that you have. I've actually had representatives from both campaigns sit down and talk to me. I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't feel informed enough to give you pros and cons, and I'm embarrassed to say that, but I will at some point, and I promise I'll be an informed voter.
Really last question, Ann Froelich.
Yeah, I have a question. You've mentioned things, but I think a very important part, I think something very important is housing and what's happening to it all over. I mean, when you build luxury apartments that overlook 71, I mean, what's happening to people who can't afford these apartments? Where are they going? What kind of housing is there for them?
You know, I think this is a great question, and I think it's critical to the debate happening for city council and folks vying for the mayor. I think we have to demand from municipal candidates running for those offices a plan for economic development, certainly, but for economic development that is intentional, that is not cannibalizing folks' homes or their cultures or their communities. And I see it every day in the courthouse. Folks having incredible landlord-tenant issues, essentially these out-of-town slumlords who are just preying on our communities. And that's why the small thing that I can do as the Clerk of Courts is create a more even playing field. And that's why the Help Center that we're launching in 2 weeks is primarily going to be focused on landlord tenants. So we can give these tenants more of a voice, so we can prepare them more for these hearings, so that when and if evictions happen, they're better able to defend themselves.
You guys, again, every week, you are wonderful. Thank you for your wonderful questions.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Aftab. I'm really pleased with we've got to get more people like you, and some of those people that we want to get in office in here in this room. We have other good people coming. Women Helping Women next week. Therapeutic Human, he's a Peace Corps guy, and he has a joke about every disease. He's written humor books on, that's 2 weeks, he's wonderful, you really got to come to that one. The No Side of the Drug Relief Act is in 3 weeks. We've got wonderful speakers coming, come on back. We love having you here. I do want to mention on the redistricting, some information that I've heard. My understanding is that they have enough of the petitions from the larger city areas. So Hamilton County is okay. But those folks from Warren County and Butler County, you guys have a real responsibility, because we have to have 44 of 88 counties with at least 5% of the voting public on those petitions. So we need to get those petitions going, especially. So if you know of any people in those outlying areas, we need to get their signatures on it for the redistricting. Now, it's not going to be on this. This is a long-term investment. It's not going to be on this election, but it will be on the next one. So thank you for coming today. You are a wonderful audience. You are a wonderful speaker. Thank you again. Have a great week and come on back. Thank you. Oh, food. You need to go and get the food. We don't want to leave anything to be thrown out. Any food that is back there that is not taken, if you have not handed in a